More now on the protests in Iran, with reports that more than 2,000 people have been killed during the violent crackdown by security forces, with President Trump promising that help is on its way. Laura Tingle, our Global Affairs Editor, is with me in the studio to give us more detail on this. Hi, Laura. So how much do we really know about what's happening in Iran?
We don't know a lot, Ros. All of the communications are down, as most of the viewers would know, and there's even sort of blocks to Starlink, apparently, which is one of the few means of getting any information out. But nonetheless, we're getting assessments from a lot of these human rights organisations, from the regime itself, and from US intelligence, which all suggest, as you say, about 2,000 people have been killed so far, but with a lot more possibly also having been killed but not yet verified.
So what can we expect from the US then? President Donald Trump said that help is on its way, but what could that mean?
Well, I suppose there are two sides of this, Ros. One of them is Donald Trump and the administration, and the other side is what they can actually do. Now, there are questions about that. The nature of the regime in Iran is such that it's a much more entrenched, solid regime. The Revolutionary Guard Corps, for example, controls about 40% of the economy. It's an incredibly tightly held group of people, and there's no signs that that's cracking at this stage. So the question becomes, what options have you got to actually bring about change? Now, people have been talking about things like them hitting nuclear targets, which is fine, but it doesn't actually help protesters. They've talked about attacks on the leadership of the Revolutionary Guard, or even taking out the Supreme Leader, but once again it's not clear that that can happen. And in fact, it's interesting that a lot of the states in the Gulf around Iran have been urging Washington not to act. And there's also, because it would create chaos and not necessarily improve the situation, but beyond that, there's just this problem of how do you actually get sort of change in place from doing the sorts of dramatic things that Donald Trump wants to do. And of course, going back to that issue of what he wants to do, he's talking a big game, but we know that when he has acted, for example, in Venezuela and in that earlier attack on Iran, he knew that they were short, sharp, quick and pretty certain outcomes, and it's not certain that, as they say, kinetic engagement would help. That's, basically shooting people or shooting things at Iran. So the options seem to be more in the cyberspace at the moment.
Right. There are echoes of the past here, though, aren't there, in terms of what's happening and the talk of regime change? So how does what's happening now compare with what's gone before?
Well, I think it shows how much things have changed in a way. I mean, a lot of the underlying factors this time round are the same as they were in 1979. Obviously, the theocracy was, and there was a religious element to the 1979 revolution, but economic pressures were also at play there. But in those days, the CIA used to go in and try to change regimes. They'd propped up the Shah, installed him in the first place. This time round, I don't think the Americans believe that that actually works. So they've got to find different ways of operating, and it can be counterproductive because the Iranians have always, the regime has always pushed the idea that this is all the actions promoted by Washington and Israel as well. So if they do it, they're sort of playing into the regime's hands. So it's a really tricky one.